It is 2:13 a.m. You're lying in bed. The room is completely silent. Your phone is beside you. You close your eyes, and suddenly, you remember that embarrassing thing you did 3 years ago. You said something stupid. Everyone went quiet. Someone laughed. You wanted the floor to swallow you. And somehow, your brain saved the moment forever. You try to forget it. But your brain says, remember this? The memory becomes vivid. The exact room, the exact people, the exact words, even the expression on someone's face. You wonder, why am I thinking about this now? Because your brain isn't randomly attacking you. It has a reason. Embarrassing memories are emotionally powerful, and emotional experiences are often remembered differently from ordinary moments. Your brain treats socially threatening experiences as important information, because for humans, being rejected by the group once mattered for survival. Thousands of years ago, being excluded could be dangerous. So your brain became extremely sensitive to moments when you looked foolish. Your brain wasn't designed to make you comfortable. It was designed to keep you safe, and sometimes it does that by reminding you of the moment you wish you could forget. But why does it happen so often at night? Why does your brain wait until everything becomes quiet? During the days, your brain is busy. Messages, work, people, traffic, videos, noise, constant stimulation. There is little room for your thoughts to become loud. But at night, everything becomes quiet. And when the outside world becomes silent, your internal world becomes louder. You finally have enough mental space to notice what was already there. And there's another reason. Your brain spends part of the night processing experiences. Memories are not simply stored like files on a computer. They are constantly being reorganized, strengthened, connected, updated. And emotional experiences can receive special attention. That's why you may remember the feeling of embarrassment years later, even when you barely remember what you ate yesterday. Your brain is essentially asking, was this important? Embarrassment often tells it, yes. Because embarrassment is connected to social information. What did I do? How did people react? What should I avoid next time? The brain wants answers, and when it doesn't feel finished, well, it may replay the event. That's why you sometimes mentally rewrite the conversation. You imagine a different response, a better joke, a smarter answer. But there is a problem. The more you replay the memory, the more real it can feel. Your brain doesn't simply remember the event. It remembers your emotional reaction to the event. So years later, your body can briefly recreate the same embarrassment. Your face gets warm. Your stomach tightens. You cringe, even though you're completely safe. The event is over, but your nervous system doesn't always care about the date. It cares about the emotional signal, and that creates a strange illusion. It feels like the past is happening again. But there's something even more surprising. Sometimes, the memory isn't actually as bad as your brain makes it feel. Think about the embarrassing moment you remember most. Now imagine watching it from across the room. You might notice something strange. It probably wasn't as catastrophic as it felt. Maybe everyone forgot about it. Maybe nobody cared. Maybe they were thinking about themselves. But your brain remembers it differently. Because memory isn't a perfect recording. Every time you remember something, you reconstruct it. And emotions can influence that reconstruction. Your embarrassment becomes part of the story. The memory feels bigger, more intense, more important. When something threatens our social image, we tend to focus heavily on ourselves. What did I look like? What did they think? Everyone thinks they're being watched, but almost everyone is watching themselves. Somewhere tonight, someone else is lying in bed remembering something they said 5 years ago. They are cringing too. Your brain may not be replaying the memory to punish you. It may be trying to protect you. It is searching for a lesson. The problem is, sometimes the brain doesn't know when to stop. A useful lesson becomes endless rumination. And instead of learning from the past, you become trapped inside it. One memory, again, again, again. But if the brain is trying to protect you, why does it make the memory feel worse? And what can you do to break the loop? It's 3 in the morning. The world is silent, but inside your mind, a playback loop of your most embarrassing moment is running at full volume. Why do these memories persist? Why does the brain refuse to let go of the time you tripped in public or said the wrong thing? To understand this, we must look at how our brains process social pain. To our ancestors, Social rejection wasn't just awkward. It was a death sentence. The murmurs of the crowd begin to take a physical form. Dark, ink-like shadows stretch from the floor, wrapping around his feet like heavy weights. When an event is tied to a strong emotion like shame, the amygdala stamps it into your long-term memory with incredible intensity. Suddenly, the memory distorts. The calm school colors bleed into vibrant, chaotic oranges and reds as emotional energy swirls like a localized storm. Inside the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex reacts to social exclusion the same way it reacts to physical pain. It's a survival mechanism. Our minds are hyper-vigilant to social threats. We interpret a cold look or a sudden silence as a sign that we no longer belong. We feel the weight of every awkward silence, represented by the relentless ticking of a clock in an empty, dark void. And the laughter of others, even if unrelated, feels like a direct attack on our identity, echoing through the corridors of our mind. Back in the present, the memory fragments don't just stay in the past. They loop, glowing with a ghostly light, surrounding you in the dark. This is the ironic process. The harder you try to push the memory away, the more power you give it. It becomes a focal point. When the orb shatters, it doesn't disappear. The pieces instantly reform, creating a version of the memory that is even more intense and vivid. We are trapped in the spotlight effect, believing everyone remembers our failures as clearly as we do. But in reality, they've likely forgotten. The key to reclaiming your identity is to step back. Observe the memory not as a current failure, but as a distant exhibit in a gallery. Look at your younger self with compassion. That person was doing their best with the tools they had at the time. You are not that person anymore. As you accept this truth, the reflection begins to soften. The younger self fades away, leaving the present-day man who has grown through the experience. The labels we give ourselves, awkward, stupid, embarrassing, are just words. They only have the power we choose to give them. Exhale and let them go. Watch as they dissolve into harmless golden particles, scattered by the wind of your own growth. The night is ending. The morning sun brings a new perspective. The memories aren't gone, but they no longer define who you are today. The intense memory orb has shrunk into a tiny, harmless spark. It floats out the window, becoming just another star in the vast sky of your life. Every memory, even the painful ones, is a thread in your story. How will you choose to weave the next chapter? Sometimes an embarrassing memory isn't really about the moment anymore. It's about the story you created around it. You said something awkward, but your brain turned it into, "I'm awkward." You made a mistake. It became, "I'm stupid." Someone rejected you. It became, "Oh, people don't like me." One moment became an identity. This happens because the brain likes patterns. It takes individual experiences and connects them. One mistake becomes evidence. Another mistake becomes confirmation. Soon, your brain has a story. And every time the embarrassing memory returns, it seems to prove the story is true. But there's a problem. Your brain may be collecting evidence selectively. You remember the 5 awkward moments. You forget the hundreds of normal conversations. You remember the rejection. You forget the people who liked you. You remember the mistake. You forget everything you did correctly. This creates a distorted picture. Your brain starts treating rare moments as if they represent your entire personality. And that's why one embarrassing memory can feel so powerful. It isn't just a memory. It's evidence in a case your brain is building against you. But you can challenge the case. Ask, is this actually true? Would I judge someone else this harshly? Do I remember everything that went right? Usually the answer is no. You are giving one moment far too much power. And there is another reason the brain keeps returning to embarrassing memories. It may be searching for control. If you can understand exactly what went wrong, maybe you can prevent it from happening again. So you replay the conversation, change your words, change their reaction, imagine a different ending. But reality doesn't change. The memory becomes a simulation, and you keep running the same simulation, hoping it will finally produce a better result. It won't, because the event is already finished. The only thing you can change now is what the memory means to you, and that becomes incredibly important. Your brain cannot go back and rewrite the past. but it can rewrite your relationship with the past. Imagine the embarrassing moment again. This time, don't run away from it. Watch it, observe it, then zoom out. You were one person in one moment inside one situation. This is an important psychological shift. Instead of being inside the memory, you become the observer of the memory. And when you create distance, the emotional intensity can change. The memory becomes information rather than a threat. You can even ask, what did I learn? Maybe you learned to prepare better. Maybe you learned that mistakes aren't fatal. And maybe you learned that you survived something you once thought was unbearable. That's something your brain often forgets. You survived the embarrassing moment. The world didn't end. Your life continued. You woke up the next morning. You went to work. You met new people. You had new experiences. The moment that once felt enormous became a tiny part of your life. But your brain may still treat it like an emergency. So the next time it appears at 2 a.m., try something different. Don't fight it. Don't interrogate it. Don't replay every detail. Simply recognize, that's an old memory. Then return to the present. Feel the bed beneath you. Notice your breathing. Listen to the room. Remind your brain, I'm here. The moment is over. I'm safe. Because sometimes the solution isn't understanding the memory better. It's remembering that you're no longer inside it. But there is still one final question. Why does the brain sometimes bring these memories back, even after years have passed? Maybe your brain isn't trying to embarrass you. Maybe it's reminding you how much you've changed. Think about the person you were 5 years ago. They didn't know what you know now. They made mistakes. They said awkward things. They cared too much about what others thought, and that's okay. Instead of judging the younger person, the protagonist reaches out. Growth changes how you interpret the past. The same memory that once felt humiliating can eventually become proof that you survived, proof that you learned, proof that you became someone different. Sometimes embarrassment is simply the price of becoming socially aware. You learn what works, you learn what doesn't, you learn who you are. The problem begins when learning turns into punishment, when reflection becomes rumination, when one awkward moment becomes this is who I am. One moment is not your identity. One mistake is not your personality. One rejection is not your worth. And maybe the next time your brain brings back that ridiculous thing you said, you can respond differently. Try. Interesting. My brain remembered that. Then let it pass. No punishment, no replay, no courtroom, just a memory. Because the goal isn't to erase your embarrassing memories. It's to make them smaller, small enough to remember without reliving. But there's one final realization. The reason these memories hurt may be because deep down you are still afraid of being judged. And understanding that fear is where the real freedom begins. The fear of being judged is deeply human. You want people to accept you. You want to belong. You want to be understood. So when you embarrass yourself, your brain treats the moment like social danger. But here's what your brain forgets. People are usually thinking about themselves. The person you thought was judging you may have been worried about something in their own life. Everyone is carrying their own spotlight. That's why the memory can feel much bigger from inside your head than it ever looked from the outside. You can stop treating awkward moments like disasters. Maybe you looked foolish. So what? You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to be awkward. You are allowed to make mistakes. Confidence isn't never being embarrassed. Confidence is knowing you can survive embarrassment. The goal is to become comfortable with being human. The next time an embarrassing memory appears at night, don't attack it. Don't start analyzing every word. Instead, pause, take a breath, and notice the thought. There is that memory again. That's all. You don't need to solve it or punish yourself for remembering. Then bring your attention back to the present. Feel the pillow, feel the blanket. Notice your breathing. Listen to the silence. Remind yourself, that happened then. This is now. Those two moments are not the same. Your brain may replay the past, but your body is here. You're safe. You're older, you're different, you've learned. If someone I cared about made this mistake, would I judge them forever? Probably not. You would probably tell them, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Maybe you deserve the same kindness. Compassion changes the meaning of memory. The goal isn't to pretend the mistake never happened. The goal is to stop using it as evidence against yourself. Your past can teach you. Eventually, that memory becomes just a story, a small story from a much bigger life. And maybe one day, you'll remember it and laugh. The moments you once wanted to erase can become the moments that remind you how much you've grown. They were just moments, and moments pass. The next time you're lying awake at 2 a.m. and your brain remembers that embarrassing thing, you can smile and say, "I'm not there anymore." You are not your worst moment. You are the person who lived through it, learned from it, changed because of it, and kept going. You survived. And someday, the memory that keeps you awake tonight might become the memory that makes you smile.